All right, let's talk actual hockey.
Sure.
Because you don't want to talk March Madness.
I just don't know anything about basketball.
Do you watch any basketball games?
I know that I liked what SVP had to say about...
actually,
you're just a fan of coaches berating players, in general.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's a line, and he didn't cross it. Like, he's not of Bobby Knight status.
Right.
Right.
Like, and mind you, that was a different time. He was more old school, but even for those times, like, he basically assalted players.
Yeah. He literally did. Yeah.
Yes.
Assault. Like, didn't he choke somebody out, I think?
Yes, and so did Woody Hayes at Ohio State. But I actually wrote that down. That's the only thing I wrote down is I wanted to get your thoughts on it. As a former professional athlete at many different levels, you had probably You probably had fucking 50 coaches, right? Because you were up and down from the minors and all that stuff.
I would say professional coaches. I would say probably in the 15 range.
Okay,
and maybe less because I didn't hop around from team to team.
But you went from the minors.
So I had a coach in junior, Mike Stothers, and I ended up having him when we won the Calder Cup in Manchester. So I was reunited with him. Far and above the hardest coach I've ever had on me, and I love him like a father. He would put us down when we were playing bad, and we'd watch video, and he'd berate every player. But he would bring it to that line where he wouldn't cross it.
Right.
But you're like, fuck, I want to do better, and he challenged you, and there was some days where I'd go home and I'd have higher anxiety than others, and some days I would shit my diaper when he was really losing it on me, but it turned me into the person I am today. Like, you have to go through things like that. You have to battle through adversity. It's not always going to be easy, and if you want to be coddled, it's going to be a very tough life ahead.
Did you ever have coaches on the other end of the spectrum that were a little bit more, that maybe they just were a little softer around the edges, talk to guys more instead of yelling at them? Because I think that's really the biggest point of the Izzo thing is I have no problem with what Izzo did. I think there's multiple ways to coach. And it's the coach's job to find the way to get the most out of their guys. And so they probably have a pre-existing relationship that's a very deep relationship, and he knows the right buttons to push to get the most out of his guys. So for us to just jump into it and just assume what he's doing is wrong,
I don't know what the context was either. Maybe
crazy.
He mentioned it before tip-off, and 5 minutes into the game, this guy's making that mistake where he's like, yo, what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
I don't know what happened there. It doesn't look great when it's on national television and he's just berating a player. Some people bring in the fact that, like, this guy's making $4 or $5 million a year as a coach, maybe even more, and these guys are student athletes, not making a penny. But to take that out of it, and going back to the question you asked, if I had a coach that was on the other side of that, I wouldn't name names, but there was no accountability in the dressing room, and you'd see certain guys make the same mistakes as other guys that weren't being held accountable like the other guys who were making them, and it was a fucking gong show, and that's why we were losers. And Stothers would actually go at the older guys and the guys who were established. And then the young guys would kind of be sitting there like this, and then they would leave the room, and he knew we could take it too. Like, I would, he would say, fuck you, me, and what the laser pointer, and like, what's this? And once he left the room, I'd say, fuck, that was a pretty nice pee-pee whack, boys? And everyone have a little giggle, and then you go back out there and you get it done.
I think it happens all the time behind the scenes, too. It just so happened that the cameras caught this, and it was so public. And it did look like he wanted to fight him a little bit. Like, he was getting physical. He was up to that point where he was, like, going after the guy and had to be he was the one that had to be restrained in the situation. But I'm sure that same exact shit happens in every single locker room. It's just usually not in front of a camera.
And one thing where from the fan perspective is the amount of pressure that on these athletes and coaches on an everyday basis when every move you make is being scrutinized. There's so much tension that accumulates up in your body, no matter if you're the coach or the player, and sometimes you just end up aligning into another guy or the coach as me, the player, where both of us are at peak we're rattled,
right?
And it just and then it just comes together, and then it's something like that.
Have you ever seen a coach actually get physical with a player?
Actually, when I was in junior, one of our coaches was just fed up with the player, and he poked him in the chest. He kind of gave him one of those, and then the player ended up making a spectacle of it, and the coach actually ended up getting fired.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Doug Lidster was the coach's name, and he was a great guy. It was when I was playing with the Saginaw Spirit. I felt bad for him. The player completely over-exaggerated.
He dove?
He flopped. He flopped.
Right.
He cried wolf, and the fans kind of knew it had all gone down, and then the truth came out, and it was a shitty year.
Yeah. I mean, well, I guess it also, like, what type of coach... That guy probably didn't have the relationship with the players. That's what I always just assume. When a coach gets that much in, a guy's face like that, like Izzo... He probably has he's so much built up respect and trust both ways with his players, that those type of moments happen and they can move on and then get better. He fucking called a play for that guy right out of the huddle.
I love that. When coaches call a guy out and they say, all right, you're up, that's the way to do it every time. Did the player talk about it after the game?
Yeah, he said he had no problem with it.
And then former players of Izzo's came out, like Draymond Green said that, like, this is how Izzo operates. He loves the kids and he's trying to get them. I think it's a very fine line, like, to try, if you're a coach and you're, you know, berating a player, you're doing it publicly like this, it's a very fine line between, like, losing the locker room and actually, like, doing something that's going to motivate the guy. Like, I don't know where it is all the time. It just, you have to know from player to player, like, oh, I can push this guy's buttons. I can't do the same thing with this guy that I do with that guy.
Certain guys are way softer than others. Regarding the player aspect of it, you know, as I said, I would love when it would get called out, but you got to put the guy right back out there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you got to know how far you can push it with each guy.